Hello, I'm Phil Goodlad. This is the Scottish Football Podcast. The news, the views, the analysis, everything you need from our beautiful game on Thursday, the 9th of October. Game day at Hampden.
Scott McTominay is indeed going to get the chance to give Scotland the lead from the penalty spot. Up he steps and scores!
Scotland take on Greece in what is a vital World Cup qualifier. The manager says he has the secret to a better result than we saw back in March.
Play better. They have to play better. The last game we gave away goals that are not really part of our makeup.
Can Scotland keep the World Cup qualifying momentum going? And are we on our way to the tournament in North America next summer? Brian Christie feels it's the one thing left to achieve.
Everybody's just absolutely desperate. A long journey we've been on as a group with this manager. You feel like that's the only kind of piece of the puzzle left.
We'll guide you through all the big talking points ahead of the big kick-off that you can see live on BBC Two Scotland tonight. But the best pictures, of course, is live on BBC Radio Scotland.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Well, let's begin with the puns that my producer has written down for us, all to do with fireworks and cherry chapsticks, and what's the one that Katy Perry sings about a tiger? Michael Grant is the Katy Perry aficionado after yesterday's press conference at Hampden, the Scottish football correspondent. Michael, good morning to you.
Morning, Phil.
Was it you that asked that rather devilish question to the Scotland manager about did he know that he was sharing a hotel with Katy Perry?
No, I didn't ask the question, but I certainly feasted on the answer in terms of my stuff. I think we all did. Steve Clarke's press conferences aren't always the liveliest media material, but he certainly gave us a laugh for that one. I think he enjoyed it himself. And yes, I can confirm that most of the football writers were Googling Katy Perry, not to find out who she was. Obviously, we know that. We're not that out of the loop, but just to kind of see what fun we could have with songs and lyrics from her vast back catalogue.
Cammy Bell, the former goalkeeper of a number of clubs, former Scotland goalkeeper as well. Good morning to you.
Morning, Phil.
Let me take you back 400 years ago to a very sad day for English literature when the great William Shakespeare died. Thankfully, this morning, Cammy, I have evidence that Shakespeare lives on in the form of the Scottish football correspondent for the Times of London, Scottish edition. It seems reasonable, writes M. Grant, to suggest Steve Clarke and Katy Perry rarely crop up in the same conversation. One is a global icon on the list of best-selling music artists of all time, her career a kaleidoscope of primary colours. The other, a football manager from Ayrshire, who would have you believe he smiles in the mirror every morning just to get it over and done with for the day ahead. Cammy, with literature like that, Scottish football is in a brilliant place.
Always is, Phil, isn't it? Always is. And it's always nice to see our national team manager having a little chuckle and laugh, because he doesn't always, but it's nice to see that.
Be honest with me. Now, I have an 11-year-old daughter, so I know Katy Perry's music. But if she was to walk into our house at tea time, I'm really struggling to say, Katy, this is you, come in. Do you know if she was to walk into the Bell household who she is?
Oh, yes, Phil, I've got an 11-year-old daughter as well. So, yeah, listen, I would absolutely know who Katy Perry is.
Yeah. Listen, I love the idea that we've dumbed down this podcast even more than we normally do by for the first 3 minutes not speaking about the big game tonight, but speaking about Katy Perry. So let's redress that. Michael, when we look back at Steve Clarke's reign as Scotland manager, however long that still has to go, will we look back on the 9th of October 2025 and say that was a pivotal moment at Hampden?
Well, hopefully. I think it is a massive game. I was looking at this a few days ago, and I genuinely think it's in the kind of 10 biggest games that we've had under Steve Clarke. Whether it's pivotal, I think it could be pivotal if we lose. And I think if we win, it continues what has been a really good start so far in this campaign. I mean, to go to Copenhagen and get a draw was an excellent foothold in the group and in the campaign, and then to go and get the job done in Belarus. But to me, you've got to build on that. You know, you don't rest on your laurels, especially when it's such a short campaign. Win your 3 home games, You've got a draw in Copenhagen. See what you can get in Athens. Now that's easier said than done. Win your 3 home games, but if that's how you qualify for tournaments. The teams that get to tournaments do that. So I think it is pivotal in terms of just keeping that momentum going. Phil, we've been speaking to some of the senior players during this campaign, and I think there is a sense of it's a kind of last chance for some of the guys, McGinn and Robertson and Kenny McLean and these guys, and you just get the sense that they're not going to give it up lightly. But of course, as I'm sure we'll come to, they're up against a really talented side tonight.
Yeah, they're up against a talented side, Cammy, who the last time they were in town, they blew Scotland away. I mean, I still quite shudder to that day in March at Hampden, that Sunday, because you went there with such high hopes, such expectation. We maybe also fell into the trap, did we, of thinking, oh, well, we'd beaten Greece just a few days before, and it's Greece, and, we're Scotland, and it's Hampden, and I don't know, it all went wrong. How big is the game in March for looking ahead to what might happen tonight, 7 months on?
I think it's a good reminder for me that, again, if you don't turn up, you don't do the basics right, then this Greece team can really, really hurt you. It was an absolute demolition in March for me. It was a real hammer and blow for all the Scotland players, but the fans as well. So, yeah, I think it's good that it's fresh in their mind that it can happen, because I think if Scotland approach this game right, they've absolutely got the players to go and win it. Listen, but we know it's a Greece side that is a good Greece side. It's going to be a difficult game tonight, but I'm with Michael. I think this is a huge game for Scotland. I really do. I think they're off the back of 2 good results, clean sheets as well, which I think is really important that Scotland got 2 clean sheets. So I think they've got to look forward to this game. This is a massive opportunity, and that's what I would say is I think it's a huge opportunity for the country to go and hopefully grab tonight and try and put us in a good place.
And Michael, can we rid ourselves of that old cliche that this is a game that Scotland will hope not to lose? Because that just sounds silly, because every game you hope not to lose. But the whole idea about winning your matches at home, would a draw be disappointing tonight?
I actually asked Clarke, a lot of people were calling it a must-win game. Did he see it like that? And, not surprisingly, he said that he didn't really, and if it was a draw, it wouldn't be the end of the world. You're still, you've taken points off Greece as well. I think we have to win. I think you have to just kind of keep your foot down when you've got a bit of momentum going, and really hurt Greece and damage their campaign. But I think with Steve Clarke in Scotland, you never quite know what you're going to get. When they're good, they can be really good. Sometimes they just surprise you and let you down and don't really turn up. I think, and Cammy touched on it there, I think the defeat in March is a wake-up call about how good this team is, if we didn't know it before. I think the fans will certainly turn up tonight, with that sense of being on edge and maybe even realising that they have to be behind the team tonight to lift them, because it's not going to be easy for spells of this game, So, and Greece, you don't really know what you're going to get from Greece either, because just when we think they're a coming force, they get turned over 3-0 at home by Denmark in the last game. What I would say, and this isn't a good omen at all, that the manager, Ivanovic, has had 5 away games as manager and won them all. The most recent one being at Hampden. So we have the warnings.
That is a pattern with Greece just now, because they've lost at home to Scotland, to England, to Denmark, but they've also won against England at Wembley. They obviously turned us over as well. They seem to be a team that prefer, at the moment at least, to be playing away from home.
The one other thing I would say about it is, and you would hope that this is the case, I think Scotland are more ready for this one than they were when Greece came the last time, because it was just on the back of the first leg, obviously, which took, was a big night, a big effort, emotionally, psychologically, physically. You then fly back from Greece. Well, you could say that Greece made the same flight, of course, and it didn't stop them. But Steve Clarke made the point yesterday, and I remember it from the time, that he didn't make enough changes to the team between the first and second legs. So it wasn't as fresh. Greece made 6 changes, and they did look fresh. You've also got Gannon Doak as an option this time, and you've also got Aaron Hickey as an option. I think both of them are really significant players. I don't know if he's going to start Doak. He might start Christie, but it's an option. And I think we all really buy into what Ben Gannon Doak can give the team.
Let's get into what we think we'll see tonight as far as personnel and tactics are concerned. And Cammy, the number one place to start, and who best to ask than yourself, who plays in between the sticks? Does Angus Gunn retain his position?
Yeah, I think he does for me. I think the 2 clean sheets previously, like we spoke about, which was great for the team to build on. I think Angus Gunn done well enough in them games. And again, listen, we've got a problem within the goalkeeping department. We all know that none of our goalkeepers that are in the squad are playing league football. So it's a difficult one, but I think Steve Clarke will look at his last campaign and then go with Angus Gunn, who I think got 2 decent clean sheets, which will give him confidence. But certainly, listen, long term, it's an absolute problem position for us.
Cammy, how difficult is it for a goalkeeper who's not playing regularly to come into an international setup in front of quite literally the world tonight and be asked to perform at a level that helps his country win a match? Because I would imagine goalkeeping, the very nature of goalkeeping, a lot of the time you're not in the action, means that if you're not regularly playing, that would be more difficult to then get into a team and play for 90 minutes.
Yeah, listen, I think it's really difficult. Again, I think what you lose, Phil, is your decision making. Again, you can't replicate that in training. You can keep sharp, you can work hard in training, do all the other aspects of goalkeeping, but them decisions you have to make in games, and they're the key ones. They're the ones that make or break. They're the ones that if you make a wrong decision, you lose a goal. So it's that timing of a ball over the top or a cross coming in, whether you're going and collecting it or not. So I think you lose that a little bit when you're not playing. So I think it is really, really difficult. But what I would say is these guys have got experience that are in there. I think when you look at Angus Gunn, he's now got international experience. We can say he's an experienced goalkeeper at that level. Craig Gordon, we know he's got a huge, vast amount of experience at that level of international. But I just think you're in a much better place if you're playing week in, week out, because again, them decisions that you're making for your club, you carry into international football.
And of course, we're focusing on the goalkeeper, but the rub of this is that the defence will know that there's somebody behind them who's not playing regularly. And I wonder if that plays on the mind of say, a John Souttar or a Grant Hanley.
I don't think it will, Phil. I think they'll trust their goalkeeper. I think they've as I say, because they've got that experience and they've played a number of games now, I think they'll absolutely trust him. I just think as a goalkeeper himself, Angus Gunn absolutely would want to be playing, because as I say, them slight decisions, it just, again, he might get away with it. Again, with his experience, that he'll try and use that as much as he can. But I just feel like them decisions that you might need to make might end up costing you because you're not match game sharp. So I think the defence, I don't think there'll be a problem with regards to trusting him if he's selected. I really don't. I think that the guys will get behind him. We know he's an experienced goalkeeper and a top goalkeeper as well when he's at the top of his game.
Michael, let me take you back to the days when, rather as sharpening your pencil for the times you were leading football teams to glory and championship manager, and you were sorting out the tactics. Do you play 2 up front tonight?
No, I don't think I do. I think the system that Steve Clarke has been using recently, the 4-2-3-1, I think that works for us. I can imagine it'll be, McGinn, McTominay, either Gannon, Doak or Christie, with Adams up front. Adams is on a decent little run of form for Scotland, goals-wise. You can never rule out Lyndon Dykes. He's a Steve Clarke favourite, isn't he? But I suppose the one thing you'd say about Scotland under Clarke, a lot of the goals have come from midfield. It was John McGinn was prolific for a while. Then McTominay took over. McTominay's goals have dried up slightly by his level, although he did score the penalty in in Greece in that first leg. But Gannon, Doak, Christie, that would be my preference. Phil, would just be Adams, who he can sometimes be a bit of a frustrating figure. He's not a prolific international goal scorer, but I think he's well liked by his teammates, and you can see the kind of work rate that he puts into each performance. So I think he does merit his place.
And here's me asking about two up front as if that in itself is an attacking formation. But actually, you're right. Scotland look almost more threatening with their solid midfield and their player up front to bring midfielders in. Like, because we don't play two up front tonight doesn't necessarily mean that Steve Clarke is playing for the draw.
No, absolutely. No. I mean, it was funny, we were speaking to Ryan Christie yesterday, and Christie plays in one of the deeper central midfield positions for his club, but he's never done that for Scotland, and he was saying it's never even really been a discussion that he's had with Steve Clarke. Steve Clarke obviously prefers him a bit further up. I think Christie or Gannon Doak is one of the few question marks that I can really see in the team tonight. I might be wrong, but I'm imagining it'll be a midfield of Gilmore and Ferguson. I mean, he loves Kenny McLean, but maybe it's Gilmore and Ferguson, McGinn, McTominay, either Gannon, Doak or Christie. I think the back four kind of takes care of itself, doesn't it? I mean, probably at the exclusion of Kieran Tierney, which we probably wouldn't have imagined we would be talking about a team without Tierney in it. But at the moment, I think it's Hickey, Suter, Hanley and Robertson. So there's a lot of experience in there, and there's a lot of players that have played together for a long time for Scotland.
Cammy, on Gannon Doak, who's a player that we always speak about when he's in the Scotland squad and now back from injury, and we speak about players that we all remember that gets bums off seats. There's that sense of electricity and excitement when they get on the ball. It's a big night for a young man like that, because there's now this growing expectation for a teenager that he is the person that makes Scotland tick.
Yeah, there is a huge expectation. I think there's been for a while, so I think he handles it pretty well. He looks as if he's can manage just to take it in his stride. And listen, he is a fantastic player. He's one of them players you just described, Phil, for me. He gets people off their seat. He's an exciting player. He's a player that defenders won't want to face because they know how direct he is, they know how fast he is. And he's got real quality. So he's a brilliant player for Scotland to have at their disposal. Whether he starts the game, I'm unsure. If again, does Steve Clarke go with Christie in there rather than Doak? That'll probably be the question, because I'm with Michael. I think that the rest of the team almost just picks itself. It's whether he goes with Adams. I think he will go with Adams for his work rate rather than Dykes up front. But yeah, listen, it's an exciting team Scotland have got, and squad as well. When you're talking about the likes of potentially having Doak, Tierney, these guys on the bench, we've got strength and depth now. So I think we're in a good place. We just need to perform on the night.
Yeah, and actually we're talking about whether Ben Doak starts tonight or not. It might actually be that he's the weapon off the bench that Scotland need with 25 minutes to go. Michael, we've not focused on Greece because yesterday's podcast focused more or less exclusively on the threat from the visitors tonight. But I think it's just worth you reminding us that when we're talking about individual players and actually the pace and the speed of thought as well as across the pitch, Scotland actually welcome a really slick side.
Yeah, we do, and I mean, although he hurt us, there was pleasure in watching the young lad Karetsas, who, from memory, made his debut in the away game and then his first start at Hampden. What a talent! I mean, he's still only 17. There's a question mark, I think, over whether he'll start tonight because he's not been well. I spoke to a Greek journalist who thought that he would be a substitute if he's involved at all. But you look at the team, again, they'll probably have 4-2-3-1 again. Konstantelios, who scored one and made one or two, I think, at Hampden, plays for Pauk. Christos Solis, the Club Brugge winger, is a talent. And Pavlidis up front, the Benfica striker, he's prolific for Benfica. They played really nice football in the in the second leg and also in some of the first leg. We had to soak up a lot of pressure in that first game after McTominay's goal. They played really nice football. We gave them too much space at Hampden. There was gaps between our defence and midfield, and they feasted on that. They were in about it, and again, that's just kind of it's not easy, but I think the work rate wasn't as good as it could have been from Scotland. We weren't tracking runners well enough at Hampden in that game, and you've got to do that because their movement is really sharp.
Jonathan Sutherland and the Sports Scene team will bring you the coverage on BBC Two tonight, live Scotland against Greece from Hampden, 7:30. Best Pictures, of course, across on BBC Radio Scotland. Kenny McIntyre and the Sports Sound team on air from 6 o'clock. That's across the frequencies on BBC Radio Scotland. Finally, before we go, the news has broken. Steven Gerrard is poised to begin talks with Rangers about a return to Ibrox. Cammy, last night, an amusing character reminded me of the last time we were here, and I said on the podcast that there were so many sightings of Steven Gerrard across the country on social media that it was a bit like that moment from the Steven Seagal film when he walks into the bar and is shouting, "Has anybody seen Richie?" And everybody seemed to be saying, "Has anybody seen Stevie G? Anybody seen Stevie? He's in the petrol station. He's in the hotel that Katy Perry and Steve Clarke was in. He's all over the place." Firstly, have you seen Stevie G?
I haven't, Phil. I've not seen Stevie G, unfortunately. I've been at many petrol stations, but I've certainly not seen him in there. So, yeah, listen, I think it's a move that obviously it's been on the tip of everyone's tongues that potentially Stevie G would be coming back to Rangers. And yeah, it looks as if they're in talks now. So I would be surprised if it doesn't happen now, if it's became public. And I think it's a good move for Rangers. I was he was one of the ones that I looked at when Russell Martin departed, that he'd be one that certainly I would be looking at strongly if he was interested in a job to bring in, because of his experience at the club. He had a relatively decent success when he was there, and I think it's just somebody that needs to steady the ship because it's going in the complete wrong direction at this moment in time. So it's a big call for the owners, whoever they bring in.
Cammy, just as somebody who's been at Rangers as a player, so knows the club, the old adage that you never go back. When Steven Gerrard arrived at Rangers to begin with, he was the former Liverpool and England captain. He was, a worldwide name, and this was his first foray into management. Since then, he didn't do well at Aston Villa, he didn't do well in Saudi Arabia, and has been out of football for a wee while. So he's going back not as the all-conquering former player, but actually as a manager who has a bit of baggage at clubs that things haven't worked out the way that he would have liked. Is that a risk for Rangers?
Listen, any manager's a risk for me. Again, when you look at the candidates that are getting bandied about, I'd say Steven Gerrard's probably the lowest risk out of them all, because he's been at the club. I think Rangers is a unique circumstance where you need to understand the expectations, you need to understand the club. You don't get time, which Russell Martin's found out, that you don't get allowed the time if you don't start well. So he understands that demand, so it's taken that element of the risk away from the appointment if Steven Gerrard gets a job. Yes, he's not had a good time of it when he's left the club, and there's been sort of, if you want to call it, failures at other clubs. But I think he's recognised that. I've listened to him recently as well, and he's talked about getting the right people round about himself and new people that he wants to get around about himself. So he's obviously identified where he's went wrong, which I think is a really good thing for a manager to do when they step away from football and they have that period to reflect, that they do identify the things where it's went wrong and they try and rectify them in the next job that they get.
Michael, I had to chuckle on Good Morning Scotland earlier on Radio Scotland because I was doing the paper review, and Steve Clarke yesterday in his press conference that you were at must have been asked, wouldn't it be good if Scotland won tonight because it would knock both Rangers and Celtic stories off the back pages? And that was quoted on a number of back pages, but it was quoted on a little sidebar because the main page was taken up by Steven Gerrard news that he's poised to begin talks. A good move for Rangers and good move for Steven Gerrard?
Well, for Steven Gerrard, I don't know how many options he's got. I don't know what kind of offers he's getting, although he is a big name still, and that would attract a lot of clubs, I guess. I think Cammy's way of putting it is really good. That this of the quoted names, he is probably the least risky. Listen, it's not black and white. He wasn't brilliant at Rangers. He wasn't a disaster at Rangers. He won a league. He won 1 trophy out of 9. You can look at it both ways. When he left them, they were the champions and they were 4 points clear at the top, having beaten Celtic in the opening derby. I mean, what would they give for that kind of position now? He did spend a lot of money. The wage bill went through the roof under him. Domestically, they were pretty average a lot of time, poor in the cups, good in Europe. Good results against Porto and Feyenoord and Benfica. I think what he does is he unites a fan base that is all over the place at the moment and feeling a lot of hostility towards some of the people that run in the club. So I think he is a unifying presence for the board when they probably feel that they need that. And I think he will get time. I mean, the Rangers fans will never turn on him like they did on Russell Martin. They have too much affection for him. And if it goes wrong, I don't think it's... This is a really negative way of putting it, but I think if it goes wrong, it's not going to go as wrong as it has done for Martin. Fundamentally, I think Steven Gerrard will make them better and he'll make them competitive. Whether that's enough to overturn Celtic is another matter. But I can totally see why they're going for him.
If anything happens that is credible and verifiable and that the BBC can stand it up, then obviously we'll bring it to you. There's a lot of rumours out there about sightings about Steven Gerrard and about talks and about I think last night he was spotted in the same hotel as Steve Clarke and the Scotland team. All, of course, open to conjecture, I think is the best way to describe it on social media. But when anything happens that we can stand up, we'll bring it to you. For now, Michael Grant, the Scottish Football Times correspondent, Cammy Bell, goalkeeper of many clubs, including his time with Scotland. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on what is the big day as Scotland take on Greece tonight in the Men's World Cup qualifier. And whatever happens, you'll be able to watch it with us on BBC 2 Scotland from 7:30. But Best Pictures, as always, is on BBC Radio Scotland, which is on air, Sports Sound, live from Hampden at 6 o'clock. We'll review the game tomorrow, bright and early with the Scottish Football Podcast, so make sure you have your notifications on for that. And, of course, make sure that you tell people that we're here every weekday to bring you the news and the views from our beautiful game. Enjoy Hampden tonight, and we'll speak again soon.
It's petty, it's ill-informed.
Are President Trump's cuts having an adverse effect on research?
It's pandemonium.
What number's that in the periodic table?
PD, number 47. I don't know.
I've done the shooting clays before. The longer you do it, the shorter obviously it gets.
When Craig said there he'd been shooting the clays, I imagined him out the back line. Somebody's washing,
William Shatner, his secretary, contacted me to say, when Bill has a question now and again, can he contact you? And then one time he called me up and he wanted to know, David, what is a photon? I'm thinking, this is incredible. Captain Kirk wants to know what a photon is,
I once met a guy who referred to a globe as a ball map. A ball map.
Look at the ball map.
What we normally do is spin the ball map and we see where we go on holiday.
The Off the Ball podcast, available every Monday on BBC Sounds.